But discipleship starts at the moment the person starts professing Christian beliefs.
それで私はこのラインをもっと上に上げたいのです。この弟子訓練が始まるのは、もう興味の後、ちょっとずつ信仰、もうちょっとずつ一つずつ信じ始めた時からです。
In other words, as they start moving from interest into that growth area as plants grow, as they start moving into, and as you start visibly seeing signs of growth towards faith in Jesus Christ, I want to propose that discipleship starts there.
だから私が言いたいのは、弟子訓練が始まるのは、この興味があった後、そしてもう成長するその段階から、信じ始める時から、いろんなことに興味を持って勉強する始める、その時から弟子訓練が始まると思います。
Now, of course, we don't call someone a Christian until they've made the commitment to Jesus Christ in their hearts, minds, and souls. And so, the process of growth towards Christian conversion, however, starts immediately after interest as they start moving toward. So they don't become Christians yet, but they start moving towards Christian belief and towards Christian conversion.
もちろんまだ自分の心、考え、魂を神様に捧げてない人たちを私たちはクリスチャンだとは呼ばないんですけど、クリスチャンになるプロセスはすでに2番目から始まっているということです。
So, on this model, the moment a non-Christian starts moving, in other words, you start seeing visible movement towards a commitment to Jesus Christ, I believe that discipleship can start in the same way that we water a plant.
だから私が言いたいのは、その人が興味を持った後、ちょっとずつその興味が深くなっていることを気づいたとき、成長していることを気づいたとき、その時から私たちはクリスチャンに弟子訓練をするように、もう水を注ぐという表現ですね。それが始まってもいいということです。
Of course, this doesn't mean that someone cannot be saved in an instant. Of course, that's possible.
もちろん瞬間的に救われる人たちもありますね。
Rather, again, the idea is to claim that the moment God initiates spiritual growth, the moment God initiates spiritual growth towards Jesus Christ, that we can disciple someone in creating the right sort of fertile conditions for the Lord to work.
でも先生が言いたいのは、神様が誰かをその興味からその信仰に導き始めた時から、私たちはその人たちが成長するように、弟子訓練とかを通してその場所、環境を準備してあげるのができるということです。
And I believe this is what the Apostle Paul meant in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6 again, when he said, I planted the seed and Apollos watered the seed. So right here, what I'm proposing is a model where we plant as well as water.
それで第一コリントの3章の6節でパウロが言ったように、植えること、水を注ぐことが私たちがこの弟子訓練という場所になるんじゃないかなと思います。
So let's look at Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. Let's look at the next slides.
今度はルカの福音書の19章の3節から4節、3節から10節を見ましょう。
Let me read it. Let's go through it quickly. So we see Zacchaeus, in verse 3. Zacchaeus wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed the sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. No. Yeah,
日本語読んでください。
Next slide. When Jesus reached the spot, Jesus looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." So Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham." As our Japanese brothers and sisters are reading that, I want to ask you a question. At what point did Zacchaeus become a Christian, as you see this model here?
それでこの私たちが読んだところで質問したいんですけど、いつどの瞬間にザカイさんがクリスチャンになりましたか？
Just think about it further.
ちょっと考えてください。
Let's go back. I believe it's somewhere between verse 6. So he came down, and then verse 8. Verse 8 is where he gave his action. He's moving towards repentance, and then Jesus says, "Wow, salvation has come to me."
私が思うのは6節 喜んで登ってき降りてきたところと8節の間ではないかなと思います。
Now suppose that Zacchaeus took months or perhaps years in between climbing the tree, which is again the first belief, his desire to be with Jesus, right? Welcoming the actions of Jesus, verse 6, and commitment, true repentance, verse 8, which is giving all his possessions away. Suppose it took years in between these stages.
それでちょっともしかして話したいんですけど、ザカリさんがその興味を持って木を登った時期、信じてイエス様を受け入れた時、そして決心するその時、もう悔い改めてもうお金を返すというその決心をした時、それが数ヶ月、いえ何年間かかったとちょっと一緒に考えてみましょう。
If we were simply concerned with traditional evangelism, I mean, any of these details would be unimportant because our focal point would be solely on the commitment of Zacchaeus to Jesus Christ. And I want to propose that our emphasis should also be on the fact that, number one, he had a desire to see Jesus, even without acknowledging who Jesus was. Number two, he climbed a tree to see Jesus. Now, I'm a larger man than Zacchaeus, but it's not easy to climb a tree. He climbed the tree, and number three, he actually responded to Jesus' invitation. He did all of these without acknowledging, yet without repentance, without really doing what we consider a Christian would do.
それでちょっとただ伝統的に伝道のやり方で見ると、私が主体に当てるところはやっぱり最後の決心して悔い改めるそのところなんですけど、私が言いたいのはやっぱり興味を持って木を登った時期から、そしてイエス様を受け入れてその降りてきた時、もう木を登るということも簡単なことではないですね。そしてイエス様を受け入れたその時、それ全ての段階がとっても大事じゃないかなと思います。
What I want to propose is not that evangelism is unnecessary. Of course, it is necessary. But rather that traditional evangelism is focused too narrowly on just one event when we see in the Bible, when we see among Christians, in particular here in Japan, that the Christian conversion process can actually be very, very long and lengthy.
それで私が言いたいことは伝統的な伝道が必要じゃないということではないです。私が言いたいのはこの人がクリスチャンになるその瞬間ではなくてその段階は興味を持ち始めたその時から求めた時からその救いの段階が始まるということです。
So this proposal is basically asking all of us to consider to shorten what we see as evangelism to mostly the interest stage and to lengthen the discipleship process to include those yet to be Christians who have not yet acknowledged all of the truth of the gospel while having acknowledged some of the truths of the gospel.
それで私が言いたいのはこの伝道ということをこの前に見せたようにこの最初の出会いと興味を持ち始める時にちょっと短くして弟子訓練するところをもっと長く見るということで信仰をそれからも勉強し始めた時から見るのです。
Let me conclude this section with an example to just kind of illustrate this.
それでちょっと例えばを通してちょっと今日の結論を見せます。
So we have an English worship service. It's not a church, but an English worship service where we have preaching, praise, a time of offering, and a fellowship time afterwards, and then a children's program. We have this English worship called A&F, and we run it in Nagoya, and many non-Christians attend very regularly.
それでその例えは私たち西の方に英語礼拝を持っています。その英語礼拝の名前は A&F という礼拝なんですけど、その礼拝には実際的に多くのノンクリスチャン、もう日本人、もういろんな人たちがもう毎週参加しています。
We have both Japanese and non-Japanese. We have Christian and non-Christian, and we even have some Japanese attenders who do not speak English but still come because they enjoy the environment.
その礼拝には日本人もいるし、外国人もいるし、クリスチャン、ノンクリスチャン、英語ができる人、そしてある人たちは英語はできないけど、その場所、その雰囲気が好きで来る人たちもいます。
Many of the Japanese non-Christians, they are regular attenders. They sing the worship songs. They pray the prayers. They give financial offerings. They ask the staff, including the teaching staff, Michael and I, and others, to pray for them. And they even bring their non-Christian friends to this English worship service.
その中で多くのノンクリスチャンの日本人たちは 毎週